Have you ever wondered why Korea, a nation with a unified history of over 1,000 years, ended up split into two? A question that stirs the minds of many, the answer lies deep within a narrative of historical events and ideological divides. Our journey begins with ancient Korea, a land steeped in rich culture and traditions, and progresses to the tumultuous times of the 20th century. We'll explore the division of Korea post-World War II, a period that saw the nation cleaved into two distinct political ideologies, communism in the north and democracy in the south. From there, we'll navigate through the fog of the Korean War, a conflict that further entrenched the divide. And finally, we'll arrive at the present day, where the remnants of these historical tensions still linger. Join us as we delve into the complex history that carved a line across the Korean Peninsula. The history of Korea stretches back to ancient times, long before the division we see today. This land, often referred to as the Land of Morning Calm, was once home to the three kingdoms of Goguryeo, Baekje and Silla, each with its own unique culture and traditions. The Silla dynasty, in a strategic alliance with Tang China, eventually unified these kingdoms in the 7th century. This marked the beginning of the unified Silla period, a golden age of art, culture, and Buddhist thought. Following this was the Goryeo dynasty, bringing with it a new wave of cultural and technological advancements. The world's first metal movable type printing press was invented during this era, a testament to Korea's innovative spirit. The Goryeo period also saw the spread of Confucianism, shaping the societal structure and governance of the dynasty. But as we shall see, the winds of change were set to sweep the land of morning calm. The Joseon dynasty, a golden era, was followed by a period of darkness under Japanese rule. The Joseon dynasty, established in 1492, was a beacon of cultural, scientific, and political evolution. It was a period marked by a flowering of literature, arts, and science, underpinned by the widespread adoption of Confucianism. This era witnessed the invention of the Korean alphabet, Hangul, which significantly boosted literacy among the common people. However, as centuries passed, the Joseon dynasty began to falter. The later part of the Joseon era was marred by political strife, peasant revolts, and invasions. The weakened state of the dynasty led to its downfall and made it susceptible to external influences. In the early 20th century, the tide turned dramatically as Japan emerged as a formidable colonial power. 1910 marked the beginning of a 35-year-long period of Japanese colonial rule over Korea. The once sovereign nation was now under the iron grip of an imperial power. Under Japanese rule, the Korean people faced numerous hardships. Japan sought to suppress Korean culture and identity, implementing policies aimed at Japanizing the peninsula. Schools taught in Japanese, Shinto shrines were erected, and Koreans were even forced to adopt Japanese names. The colonial government exploited the country's resources and manpower to support Japan's own expansionist policies. But even in these dark times, the spirit of the Korean people remained unbroken. Resistance movements, both armed and intellectual, sprang up across the peninsula, fighting for freedom and the preservation of Korean identity. The end of World War II marked the end of Japanese rule, but it also sparked the beginning of a new chapter. As the world celebrated the end of a global conflict, Korea found itself on the precipice of a new struggle. The liberation from Japanese rule was a moment of joy, but it also opened a Pandora's box of power struggles and ideological divides that would eventually lead to the division of North and South Korea. In the aftermath of World War II, the Korean Peninsula found itself divided along the 38th parallel. This division was not a product of local decision-making, but rather a result of foreign intervention. With the defeat of Japan in 1945, the Allied forces, primarily the United States and the Soviet Union, occupied the Korean Peninsula. The 38th parallel, a line of latitude, was chosen as a convenient division, with the Soviet Union occupying the north and the United States the south. This division was intended to be temporary, but as Cold War tensions heightened, the divide between the north and south deepened. The ideological differences between the two superpowers began to shape the political landscape of the divided Korea. North of the 38th parallel, under Soviet influence, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was established, with Kim Il-sung at its helm. The North adopted a socialist model heavily influenced by its Soviet allies. Meanwhile, in the south, under US influence, the Republic of Korea was established, with Syngman Rhee as its first president. The South adopted a capitalist model, closely aligning with the democratic principles of its American allies. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies, fueled by the global power struggle between capitalism and communism. The division of Korea was no longer just a geographical line, but a symbol of the ideological divide that had gripped the world during the Cold War. By 1950, these tensions reached a boiling point, leading to the outbreak of the Korean War. The war was brutal and devastating, leaving millions dead and the peninsula scarred by conflict. Despite a ceasefire in 1953, no formal peace treaty was ever signed, leaving the two Koreas technically at war to this day. This line drawn by foreign powers would ignite a conflict that still reverberates today. The division of Korea serves as a stark reminder of the enduring impact of foreign intervention and ideological conflict. In 1950, the simmering tensions boiled over into the Korean War. This conflict, often referred to as the Forgotten War, was far from insignificant. It was the first major military engagement of the Cold War, pitting the forces of North and South Korea against each other, with the backing of international powers. The war broke out when North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel, the boundary between the two Koreas, launching a full-scale invasion of the South. This act of aggression was not merely a civil war, but a proxy conflict influenced by the ideological divides of the Cold War. The United States and its allies supported the South, while the Soviet Union and China backed the North. The conflict was a brutal and bloody affair, characterized by a series of pushes and pulls along the peninsula. Despite the extensive ground fighting and aerial bombing, the war eventually reached a stalemate, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. This deadlock led to the signing of the Armistice Agreement in July 1953. The agreement established a new boundary near the 38th parallel, creating a 2.5-mile wide demilitarized zone, or DMZ, between the two Koreas. However, it's crucial to note that this was not a peace treaty. The armistice ended the active fighting, but it did not formally end the war. The impact of the Korean War was profound. It solidified the division between North and South Korea and set the stage for decades of tension and sporadic clashes. It also intensified the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, shaping geopolitical dynamics for years to come. Indeed, the Korean War's legacy continues to reverberate across the Korean Peninsula and beyond. It serves as a stark reminder of the destructive potential of ideological divides and the enduring complexities of international politics. The armistice may have ended the active fighting, but the war technically never ended. The Korean Peninsula remains divided, a poignant symbol of a conflict frozen in time, yet teetering on the edge of reignition. Even today, over 70 years since the division, the Korean Peninsula remains a hotspot of international tensions. The military buildup on both sides of the 38th parallel, the ideological chasm between the Communist North and the Democratic South, and the nuclear ambitions of North Korea make the region a ticking time bomb. The North, under the iron-fisted rule of the Kim dynasty, has one of the world's largest standing armies, fueled by a culture of militarism and a policy of Songun, or military first. The South, on the other hand, backed by the United States, maintains a highly advanced and formidable military force. This militaristic tension is but a symptom of the larger ideological and political differences that separate the two Koreas. North Korea, with its Juche ideology of self-reliance, stands in stark contrast to the capitalist, democratic South. This ideological divide, cemented over decades, has only deepened with time, further straining relations on the peninsula. Perhaps the most alarming aspect of this tension is North Korea's relentless pursuit of nuclear weapons. Despite international sanctions and diplomatic efforts, the North continues to test ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons, posing a significant threat to regional and global security. Efforts at international diplomacy, while often frustrating and fraught with setbacks, have nonetheless been ongoing. From the six-party talks involving China, Japan, Russia, the United States, and the two Koreas, to the more recent summits between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and former US President Donald Trump, the world continues to strive for a peaceful resolution to the Korean issue. The division of Korea remains one of the most enduring and complex issues of our time. As we look towards the future, We must continue to navigate this intricate web of historical grievances, ideological differences, and geopolitical interests, in the hope of one day achieving a peaceful and unified Korea.